3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill on 710 WOR.
Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Hill, your host, right here on 710 WOR Radio in New York City. With me is my producer, Anthony Filippio, lovingly referred to as Flipsy.
Yes.
Yes, Flipsy. Do you think that's lovingly? I
mean, I would hope so.
It is as lovingly as I can get it. Okay, how are the Knicks doing, my brother?
They were good. I went to their first win this past
First
week.
win, yeah. Well,
I had the greatest moment of my life. I met John Starks.
Oh, it's exciting. Mr. 1 for 17.
It was a legendary. Why'd you got to bring that up?
Yeah, 1 for 17, right? Okay, no problem. And by the way, you went to the one win. I won't talk about the number of losses. Yeah. All right. Let's tell the folks how they can find us. We're available right here every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on 710 WOR Radio in New York City. Then the show becomes available as a podcast on the iHeartRadio app, iTunes, and Spotify because the Flipsinator did a great job. Just search NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill. The show is also on Instagram and on Twitter and Facebook. We're shooting the show live and have a YouTube channel. All can be found at NYCBD Official. All right? All right. As the show continues, we will continue to track where the space is going and how it's getting there, not only in some of the evolving cornerstones of our society, like sports and music, which we've done 2 out of the last 3 weeks. We've also done politics and even the challenging societal issues. All right, let's review the 4 segments of today's show. The first segment is called Cannabis in the Tri-State plus Massachusetts, where I will update you on key cannabis issues in all 4 states. Our second segment is called Stunning and Amazing Facts, what I consider to be the most relevant issues and opportunities in the space since last week. Having said that, each fact is called a
Stunner.
Well, look at how orchestrated we are. I'm telling you, every week we get better. We're going to turn that into a song. Stunning and Amazing Facts, blah, blah, blah. All right, we'll get to Jimmy Cozier, and he can kind of write something for us.
Not a bad idea, actually.
All right, so the bottom line is I will bring you new insight every week. Our third segment is today's guest. It is my honor to introduce maybe one of the most exciting guests I've had on the show. Of course, I say that every week. BJ Ganem.
They're all exciting.
Okay, thank you. BJ lost his leg in 2004 during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He has a lot to say about his love for the military, the VA strengths and weaknesses, and what THC and CBD has meant to recovery from a very severe case of PTSD. You certainly don't want to miss that. Lastly, we will end with our 4th segment called Your Messages, providing answers to the most interesting direct messages we received following last week's show. We'll be back with our first segment, Cannabis in the Tri-State plus 1, right after this.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill right here on 710 WOR Radio every Sunday at 8 a.m. Don't forget, I've got a blog, medium.com/@JeffreyHill2. That's medium.com/@JeffreyHill2. It includes a number of pieces that go in deeper than the show does, and also gives you a little bit of a primer on what the next week's show is all about. All right, let's move on with our first segment, Cannabis in the Tri-State plus 1 being Massachusetts. Let's begin with New York. Cannabis vape products tested by the New York State Health Department contained high levels of vitamin E acetate, a compound that has been linked to vape-related pulmonary illnesses. The agency did not say if the compound was found in products available via state-licensed dispensaries. Quote, we urge the public to be vigilant about any vaping products that they or any family members may be using and to immediately contact their healthcare providers if they develop any unusual symptoms. In general, vaping of unknown substances is dangerous, and we continue to explore all options to combat this public health issue, Health Commissioner Dr. Howard Zucker said in a recent statement. At least one vitamin E acetate containing product has been linked to each patient who fell ill and submitted a product for testing. It was not, however, found in nicotine-based products that were tested. Many, if not all, of the affected products are believed to be counterfeits based on products from states with legalized sales, including knockoffs of other brands that are made to look real. The investigation is ongoing. All right, let's move on. New York and Illinois officials said to cannabis industry, work with us on new regulations. That's an original thought. Cannabis companies and their investors have a chance to help design the regulatory framework in their nascent industry. If they're willing to help government in that effort, policymakers from New York and Illinois said on Tuesday. Illinois State Rep Kelly Cassidy, who was the chief sponsor of the measure that Illinois lawmakers passed this year, legalizing adult non-medical use of cannabis, and Axel Burnaby, an assistant counsel to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, urged players in the industry to continue to engage in the process as other states consider the industry's future. As New York considers regulations for legalization, officials have learned from other states to work with the industry. It's new, and regulators don't know it as well as the companies do, he said. What we learned from Colorado was that stakeholder involvement bring people in from industry, consumer groups, patients, and others, Burnaby said, urging the industry to take advantage of that and participate in that kind of process. Or let's just ask a quick question, all right? Colorado pretty much has figured this out, right? Why don't all other states simply look at the Colorado model and follow it? How difficult is that?
Sounds like a smart idea.
I don't know. It seems like everybody wants to do their own thing, and as a result, we have nothing but struggles in all these states, right?
Something's already working. Why not just
We had Dan Pabone on the show. Dan was 7 years working on the Colorado law. Go back and listen to the show. He reminds everybody what to do. He's the happiest guy in the universe, though, because he's getting paid by multiple states to go do the same thing. Just look at the Colorado law and copy the darn thing. All right, let's move on to Connecticut. Connecticut isn't the biggest medical marijuana market in the U.S., but like plenty of others, it's experiencing massive growth. In just the past 12 months, the state's registered marijuana patient count has shot up 46%. NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill, that would be this show, is projecting 42,000 patients by the end of 2019, and I'm saying that is likely conservative. That translates to average monthly growth of about 3% for the patient pool, a great sign for the state's 9 dispensaries and 4 cultivators, especially since Connecticut is poised to add up to 10 more marijuana dispensaries. By the way, Connecticut is now up to 36 qualifying conditions for adults and 10 more for patients under 18. I personally know of any other state that's even close to that. Right now on to Massachusetts. Mass hemp farmers say they face ruin thanks to state ban on most CBD products. You can thank Governor Baker for that. It was June, and when the bad news came, state agricultural officials had, without warning, banned Massachusetts hemp farmers and processors from making or selling practically any edible product infused with hemp-derived cannabidiol or CBD. The edict was deemed a, quote, policy statement, close quote, outlining the state's interpretation of existing law. But the owners of the state's 104 licensed hemp farms said this is no mere clarification. It is a cataclysmic change that completely chokes off the most lucrative market for their crops and upends their carefully considered financial calculations for the 2019 growing season. Farmers say the disaster they warned of all summer is, well, it's here. Tens of thousands of pounds of hemp harvested in the last few weeks and currently drying in barns across Massachusetts have nowhere to go. With edible makers sidelined and other buyers offering extremely low prices to use the crop as biomass for fuel or feed. Lacking a financial incentive to process the plants into CBD, and with state rules also banning exports and the sale of smokable hemp flower, growers are bracing for ruin. Everybody is finishing the harvest, and none of us know what to do, said Linda Knoll, a longtime farmer in Franklin, Mass., who said she was offered $100 per pound for her artisanal hemp product instead of the $500 she expected or the $900 plus that premium, well-trimmed hemp might fetch in nearby Vermont, which has more liberal regulations. The state keeps changing the rules halfway through the game. It's insulting, she said. Frankly, I think I agree. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking cannabis news in the tri-state plus Massachusetts. We'll be back for our second segment, Stunning and Amazing Facts, right after this.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill right here on 710 WOR Radio at 8 a.m. every Sunday morning. After the show airs, it becomes a podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Spotify. We're also available on virtually all forms of social media at NYCBD Official. And, of course, we've got our own YouTube station now. Once again, NYCBD Official. All right, let's move on to the next segment, Stunning and Amazing Facts, with our first stunner. GOP congressman worries impeachment might hurt marijuana reform. Marijuana legislation seems to be gaining traction on Capitol Hill during what is undoubtedly the most cannabis-friendly Congress in history, with the House already passing an amendment this year to shield local legalization laws from federal interference, as well as approving a bill to let state-licensed businesses access banks. But as the Senate prepares to more seriously consider far-reaching cannabis proposals, one Republican congressman who backs ending federal prohibition is concerned that impeachment proceedings against President Trump could undermine the bipartisan momentum that has been pushing marijuana reform forward in 2019 to date. Quote, I think the impeachment thing is not going to be helpful to getting much done between now and November 20th, which is a shame because we have some serious issues that we need to address. Representative David Joyce, Republican from Ohio, said in an interview, quote, I haven't seen any facts that say whether the president will be impeached or not, but I do think that there are going to be a lot of raw nerves out there, close quote, and hard to pass anything. Political director Justin Streckel praised Joyce, who is a co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, for his leadership role on the issue. But he said he is hopeful that disputes over impeachment will not endanger reform efforts. What do you think about that, Flips?
What do you think? Do you think he'll be impeached? Yes or no?
Yes, he will be impeached. That doesn't mean he's taken out of office. It simply means that the House is going to vote for impeachment. Then it goes to the Senate.
I agree.
And then it's kitty by the door time.
Yep.
All right, Americans are Googling CBD more than exercise, a study finds. Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? People are increasingly more interested in CBD or cannabidiol than other health trends such as exercise and even veganism, according to a new review. Well, it makes the veganism thing make sense, but exercise? That's pretty remarkable. In fact, a non-intoxicating cannabis compound has risen in popularity so much that people Google it nearly as much as they do for, how about yoga? Searches for the terms increased 126% in 2017 compared to a year ago.
Wow.
They were 160% higher in 18 versus 17, and they're expected to rise again by 117% this year over 18 based on observed and forecasted volumes.
Wow.
All right, our findings suggest that investigation into CBD should become a public health priority to catch up with the public's interest. What a surprise. In addition to urging more in-depth studies on who uses CBD and for what purposes, the researchers suggest that, quote, product safety standards must be developed, close quote, because products on the market today are often mislabeled or adulterated. They also advocate that, quote, marketing practices around CBD should be standardized, as marketing that misleads the public could erode trust in evidence-based medicine, close quote. Americans searched for the compound, which has federally legalized in December, so long as it's derived from hemp, about how many times, Flips? 6.4 million times in April 2019 alone, and that number last month was about 7.5 million. The numbers are quite remarkable. Right on to our next stunner. Michael J. Fox Parkinson's Foundation urges Congress to pass 2 marijuana research bills. The Michael J. Fox Foundation, also known as the MJFF, named after the actor who has Parkinson's and established the nonprofit, said last week that lifting barriers to cannabis research, including rescheduling the plant under the Controlled Substance Act, the CSA, of course, is necessary to promote studies verifying marijuana's potential therapeutic benefit for conditions such as Parkinson's disease. MJFF said it's in favor of 2 marijuana bills, which would accomplish several things. The first, the Medical Cannabis Research Act. It requires the Justice Department to approve additional manufacturers for research-grade cannabis. It also suggests they should protect research institutions that conduct studies on marijuana. And thirdly, it should authorize the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to inform patients about opportunities to participate in federally authorized cannabis studies. The second major bill that they like is called the VA Medicinal Cannabis Research Act. It requires the VA to conduct studies into the therapeutic potential of marijuana in the treatment of various conditions that commonly afflict veterans, such as chronic pain and post-traumatic stress disorder, of course, PTSD. All right, let's talk about that for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. We've brought up the PTSD issue countless times. You're about to hear a PSA, a public service announcement on this issue, and we're about to have an incredible guest coming up very shortly who's going to talk about this some more. All right? So we on this show completely agree that the VA, who does a wonderful job across many disease states, could be helped by a little enlightenment on this space. All right, well, there you have it. Several of the most important issues we recognize in the space. I want to thank Politico for many of the above news pieces. They have certainly become a big help to the show. When we come back, we will move on to the third segment of the show, today's guest. I just talked about this just a little bit. It will be my honor to introduce BJ Ganem, a veteran who has dedicated his life to help fellow veterans transition home from active military duty. BJ lost his leg in 2004 during Operation Iraqi Freedom, which, of course, was engaged by George W. Bush. He has a lot to say about his love for the military, the VA's strengths and weaknesses, and what THC and CBD has meant to his recovery. You won't want to miss that, so come on back.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill, right here on 710 WOR Radio. The show then becomes a podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Spotify. We also have a show on YouTube and a YouTube channel, of course. All our social media, which we have everything, can be found at NYCBD Official. Okay, let's move on to the next segment of our show. Today's guest. I'm excited to introduce my guest, BJ Ganem, a decorated vet from Operation Iraqi Freedom, where he lost a leg from an IED. One platoon mate was killed and 2 sustained injuries, but were able to return to battle. This changed BJ's life on many levels, and he struggled with reacclimating himself back into society, not only as an amputee, but a returning vet with a severe case of PTSD. All right, welcome to the show, BJ. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Jeff. So, excited to be here.
All right, well, excited to have you. You know, we've been talking about PTSD on the show for an extended period of time and a number of challenges with the VA, and I was anxious to get somebody that really understood the issues from the inside, and there's no better person to have on the show than yourself. All right, so let's start out telling the audience why you entered the military, and let's go right through the story. please.
Well, I graduated high school in 1995 and took my Hope Scholarship and went to Georgia Southern University. I graduated in Savannah, Georgia, and spent 1 year doing absolutely no schoolwork, so they politely asked me not to come back. And
I say well done. Just kidding.
Yeah. I got drunk. I watched Legends of the Fall. Looked like what Brad Pitt was doing out there gallivanting around the world. Sound about right. I looked up how to gallivant around the world. They said join the United States Marine Corps. So I did. I told my mom. I got kicked out of college. But don't worry, Mom, I have a plan. I joined the Marine Corps. So I don't know if that was like a double punch in the gut to her because I got kicked out of college and joined the Marine Corps. But it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made.
All right, well, that's pretty exciting. So you did 4 years. You fulfilled your contract, as I understand it.
That's right.
And you went into the reserves. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So from December 96 to December 2000, I served on active duty as a Marine Corps infantryman. No real wars going on there. We did get kind of threatened to be called up for Kosovo, but that ended up being just more of a bomb and go type of war. And it was in the middle of the drawdown under the Clinton era. And so I was just getting frustrated with no training. We were even out in the field and doing IA drills, immediate action drills with weapons, and we didn't have blanks, so we had to yell, bang, 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 like we're a bunch of kids.
Oh, my goodness.
So I just figured, I love doing this, but I need to be able to challenge myself a little bit more. So my goal was to get a job in corporate America and be a reservist so that I could still do the training. And if anything major happened, I'd be able to come on off the sidelines.
Of course. So tell me. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, but I wouldn't have to waste away in just the military bureaucracy. I could actually try to make some money too. So went to work for Kraft Foods and joined the Ready Reserves and started drilling 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, and signing up for schools outside of that. So it was
all right. So tell us 2 minutes about your Kraft experience. Many of my listeners come from consumer packaged goods land. Sure. Kraft, General Foods, Nabisco were all clients of mine at one point. So tell the listeners a little bit about what you did for Kraft, please.
So I got my first job as a vacation sales rep. So every time sales reps take vacation, there's a rep that would travel and take over their route for the week, 2 weeks, however long they're on vacation. About 6 months into it, I was promoted to my own sales route. And then about a few years later, I was promoted to a district sales manager. And I truly loved it. I was in the Chicago region of Kraft where so many great people, Jackie Grant, Jeff Culler, so many people that I still lean on today for mentorship. It was just a really great 10-year career. But I think I just have extreme case of ADD, attention deficit disorder. Because after about 7 to 10 years, I need to move on and do something else. So I was realizing that my passion was more so with veterans because I was going through a lot while I was with Kraft. I went through a bad divorce, bankruptcy. I ended up getting a DUI, which would have ended my Kraft career because we were all issued company cars. When I got to a lawyer, I told him, listen, I'm going to fight this. He's like, nobody fights these in Wisconsin. You can't win. Like once you have a DUI, it's a traffic ticket, but you get charged and all this other stuff. And I reached out to everybody I knew and said, listen, I hit rock bottom. I need help. If you guys help me, I promise it will be well worth your investment. So a lot of people wrote letters to the judge, the chief of police, and they made a deal. They knocked it down to reckless driving. And I did all my courses. I never got charged with a DUI. I was able to keep my job with Kraft Foods, and that kind of spawned it. I mean, like I said in the Portraits of Courage book, I took a long look at myself and realized that I can't be angry at all the things that have happened to me. There's only one person I can control. That's me. So for the next foreseeable future, I'm just going to work on me. And then once I have myself perfected, then I'll work on the outside world. And everything changed, and I've been still working on me. I'm nowhere close to being perfect, but things are astronomically better in my life because of that simple switch of mindset.
Okay, so let me ask you. So you said a bunch of things. You talked about a book, which I'd like to come back to a little bit later on. But I know that after the Kraft experience, right, you were on active duty, and like any other active folk in the military, you can get called up. And you did get called up. Tell us about that, please.
That's right. So in 2004, I've been with Kraft for 4 years, or 3 years, 4 years. We were activated in May 2004 for Iraqi Freedom 2. This was back when they had, sequels and stuff before it just became the Iraq War. Now that we're 20 years into it. But we were activated, went to Camp Pendleton, California to do our training, pick up any other empty slots that we had. We got extra docs, we got officers, all that stuff. And then in September, we were in Iraq, operating, my platoon and I lived underneath a bridge, similar to what you would see on any interstate in America, except for the interstate and the bridges were the only thing concrete. Like when you got off on the exit ramp, you got off onto a dirt road and canal road. So it was pretty interesting. We lived underneath there. We patrolled an area in the what was called the Sunni Triangle in the Al Anbar province, right by Mahmudiya, Ludafia, Iskandaria, all the Riyas, right? So we were right there just south of Baghdad. And it was 2004, so this is when First Fallujah is kicking off. It was everybody that in the Muslim world that had a beef with America was coming to Iraq to fight us. So we had people from Syria, people from Iran, people from Lebanon, people from other European countries. So, and you could just see these Iraqi people kind of caught in the middle. And there was Iraqis fighting each other, the Sunnis and the Shias. So there was a lot of complexities to this war. One of the things that still haunts me is that there was a roadblock set up by one of the factions in Iraq. They were diverting people based on whether or not they were Sunnis or Shias. We found they dressed themselves up like cops, but they weren't. We found whole families with their hands tied behind their backs and killed just because they were a different religion, different type of Muslim. So, those type of things and seeing the extreme poverty that's there, and these kids only go to school until the 6th grade, and then it's pretty much they're on their own. Not a lot of reading.
I tell you what, just in the interest of time, I don't mean to interrupt because there's so many great things you're chatting about, but if you could just help us understand what took place that one fateful day that kind of changed your life forever.
That's right. So Thanksgiving night, 2004, we were on a vehicle-mounted patrol. We would ghost these big convoys that were coming in on the main supply route, Tampa. And when they would get ambushed, we would peel off from behind and take care of the people doing the ambushing. This night was very quiet. We didn't have any ambushes. We were on our way back to our patrol base underneath the bridge. And there was a tripwire set up with 3 155 Russian-made artillery shells rigged to it that went off at my door. I think I sent you a picture of what the vehicle looked like the next day. So I took the brunt of the explosion. 3 shards of glass from the side mirror were embedded in my left eye. A big piece of shrapnel in my SAPI plate on my chest. Both my legs were torn up with shrapnel, which ended up they'd had to amputate the left foot right away because it was too badly damaged. And eventually we went below the knee as an amputee. And my Marine Corps career was essentially over, and I wasn't ready for that. When I was preparing to go to Iraq, I had 2 scenarios in my head. Either I'd get killed and my family would, get the honors, or I'd just come back and get ready to go for the next deployment. You didn't even think about getting hurt. And then when I was in the hospital, those emotions were hard to work through, especially when my guys were still out there and the war was still raging on, and I'm, in Germany and Maryland and Walter Reed.
All right, so let me ask you to slow down there because you're saying a lot of important stuff. So at that point, you were sent, right? So you're in a very bad way. Tell us a little bit about the C-130. Tell us about the trip from Germany to Walter Reed. What took place there, please?
Absolutely. So I get trucked out of the ambush site because after the explosion went off, there was a small ambush. My platoon sent the quick reaction force. They quelled it. Everything was good. They trucked me back to Mahmudiya to the forward operating base. They stabilized me there. They stopped all the bleeding and bandaged up everything that was bleeding in my eyes and all that. Put me on a helicopter and flew me to Baghdad, where I had the initial amputation. I still remember the flight because I remember looking out of my one eye that still worked, and I was staring out the rotors of the Black Hawk, and I could see just a beautiful moon and just a halo around the moon. And I just remember feeling peaceful right at that moment. It's probably the drugs. Probably just a relief that I was alive, but it was amazing. Got there, they had great care. I had a doctor taking the glass out of my eyes, another doctor's working on my leg, amputating it, and then I'm out for the next couple of days, as far as I can remember. And then I was in Balad Air Force Base for a couple of days, and then from there they flew me to Longstuhl, Germany, where every other day I had a washout surgery. So they couldn't bandage me up right away because we had so many foreign particles in the body, and the people there just throw their trash anywhere. There's not like a landfill. It's just trash everywhere. And so the most important thing was getting all those contaminants out of me. So for about 8 days, I was just having multiple surgeries every day, just to keep all that stuff out of me. And then it was time to go back stateside. And so we're all rolled out to the tarmac. And this is 2004, so this is the height of the war. And I was just taken aback when we were put on the C-130s, which is a huge aircraft that can haul tanks and everything else. This C-130 was rigged with cot holders. So they would just bring us in on a cot and then slam it into a place, and it would just hold it right there. But there was probably 5 high of men and women, and probably, I think, 8 wide, and I don't know, maybe 30, 40 back. So there's probably like 150 men and women on this plane, all with severe injuries, all heading back to Bethesda. The care was phenomenal. I just have to say that. Like, you know, I was in Walter Reed when the news broke that they were opening up closed wings and the government wasn't ready. What people don't understand about that is that how far combat medicine has come, because in Vietnam, the last like big war that we could compare to, if somebody got to you while you were breathing and you were injured, you had a 48% chance of survival. So it's basically a coin flip. In the Iraq-Afghanistan wars, if someone got to you while you were bleeding, you had a 98% chance of surviving. Wow. They planned for about 67. And no one could expect that we were almost having 100% of the people that were injured were surviving their injuries. We have 5 men that have lost both their arms and their legs and are alive and are thriving today. That would not happen even 20 years ago. So,
all right. So let me ask you this. Well, first of all, that is absolutely phenomenal, and you know, I'm sure everybody listening to this is thrilled to hear those kinds of results. But ultimately, many of those people that you're describing, while they're surviving on the one hand, so science has really kind of surprised everyone. On the other hand, they're living a life that's very challenging. Now,
absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about you're back in Walter Reed, and tell us a little bit about, you know, kind of connect it up, if you would, please, to cannabis, CBD. What's your experience with that? Just let's get into that portion of the conversation, please.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I knew about cannabis since I was a teenager, right? I've always liked the THC. I've told you about a lot of the struggles from when I was retired in 2005 and left Walter Reed, kind of had my care at the VA and got back to work at Kraft. In 2016, another Marine, actually, during a mountain climbing expedition, a former Marine, he was using the CBD and using the edibles and using the creams and stuff. And so I got curious about it. And so I started diving into what is CBD. Like, I knew what marijuana was. I knew what THC was. Had no idea about the other cannabinoids. And so it was a complete revelation. So in 2016, I started playing around with CBD and trying to figure out, can this stuff work for me? And for the past 2.5 years, it has worked immensely for me. I have 0 phantom pains now. I don't even take Motrin anymore because I take about 150 to 250 milligrams of full spectrum CBD, get the full entourage effect from all the other cannabinoids every day. And my mood is better. My cravings for alcohol or just anger is not as prevalent. Pain, again, like with an amputation, even with the leg I have and all the stuff that I've done, running marathons, playing football, climbing mountains, all that stuff, you still have pain afterwards because your body still has to compensate for the fact that you don't have your toes anymore, the arches of your foot, your ankle, your calf, all these different things that you were born with play into it. I mean, you know, you were born with a club foot, so you know exactly what I'm talking about with the struggles that if your body isn't exactly the way it was designed to be, it makes it hard, and it makes it hard on the rest of the body to compensate.
Of course.
That.
So let me ask you a question.
He has just, yeah.
All right, sorry, but 2016, you start messing around with CBD and THC. 2004, you lose your leg. That's 12 years.
Yeah.
You know, now you're being serviced by the VA off and on for that entire period of time. Help me understand why you're not on this much sooner.
Well, because it's illegal, and so at Kraft, I'm drug tested because we have company cars. So even if I smoked a joint, let's say it was just THC, you know, while camping, right? A month prior, on vacation, if I get into even a fender bender, you know, 3 weeks down the road, I get drug tested, I pop, I'm done. My career's over. My health insurance for my family is gone. My paycheck is gone. So it's hard to, I mean, those drug tests, once you pop, there's not like a really clear appeals process with any companies. It's pretty much you're done.
Now, when you say pop, I'm not sure we understand what that means.
So that's whenever if you get a drug test and you pop with THC in your system, and THC stays in your system for a month. So it doesn't mean that you're high at that moment when anything happened, but it just being in your system is enough to get you fired and pretty much blackballed from any other. I mean, like you said, you've known all the Kraft and P&G, and you get popped with a drug test, you don't have any more careers in those Fortune 500 companies.
Right out.
Because everybody knows everybody.
All right, so then 2016, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so 2016, so I leave Kraft in 2011. In 2016, I'm working in a nonprofit, the Semper Fi Fund, helping other vets. And
all right, give us 30 seconds on Semper Fi, please. It's a very important thing to talk about. 30 seconds, please.
It really is. I mean, so in the 30 seconds, the most important story I can tell is that when I first got to Walter Reed, somehow I wasn't getting paid anymore. There was a clerical error, and my pay was turned off. It took the government 3 months to figure it out. But if it wasn't for the Semper Fi Fund, they paid every single one of our bills until we finally got our pay and got our back pay. And once I got the back pay, I offered to pay them back. They said, no way. And they've been there for me and every other injured Marine or anybody else that served with Marines. And now they have the Americans Fund, so they help all branches of service. They've been there for all of us for any of these crisis situations to where nobody has any answers. The Semper Fi Fund does. So they're an amazing organization. I can't speak enough about them.
So they're, just to put dimension around it, they're a nonprofit organization that supports all military who are dealing with very challenging health and financial issues. Is that a summary of it?
Absolutely right. They also have a team, so they do a lot of those mountain climbing things that you see. That's because of Team Semper Fi. The marathons is all because of Team Semper Fi. That hand cycle that you see me riding, Semper Fi Fund provided that, not only the bike, but also the training to learn how to use it and to be really good at it. So, again, they're a nonprofit, a 501c3. They've gotten 5-star charity ratings from just about every charity watchdog out there.
Okay.
So probably.
All right, so let's not do too much more on Semper Fi because you've done some fabulous things in the 501c3 arena, and I want to get there. So let's start talking about between 2013 and 2016, two major things happened, right? Tell us about that, please. Yeah,
so 2013, so in 2011, I leave Kraft and become Dane County's Veteran Service Officer. I spent about 18 months heading up that organization, bringing in some new technology, and just found I was not a good fit for government-type work. I had known the Semper Fi Fund for a long time. They were starting up a new program called Veteran to Veteran program. I had just recently graduated from USC with my master's in social work with an emphasis on military life. I already had a bachelor's in psychology, and I already had my accreditation through the VA as a veteran service officer. All right, so let me ask you to hold on just a second here, because we're rocking through a whole life here, and I just want to underscore what's happening in your life. Let me just talk to the audience for a minute, okay? Yeah. So here's a guy that has some struggles when he's younger, all right? Kind of writes himself, goes into the military. The military helps write him, right? He comes out of the military, goes into Kraft, does extremely well, but he's in the reserves, okay? Then all of a sudden he gets the call, does his duty like many of the folks in the reserves have done for the last many, many years, right? Loses his leg, watches several of his buddies die, and many others get severely wounded, right? Comes back home, goes through the whole protocol of rehab, recovery, etc.
The VA, as he mentioned a moment ago, can't serve him something that we all know is going to be helpful. That's cannabis and CBD for literally a period of 12 years because he's concerned about losing his job with craft. And of course, it's illegal with the VA, right? So all of a sudden, things move forward. Semper Fi jumps in and helps you out in a wonderful way. All that is wonderful, right? Okay. Then you begin to do things with Semper Fi, and you're unbelievable. We're going to show some things as we're doing this. If anybody watches the YouTube, you'll see him doing the Boston Marathon and finishing any number of other challenging things, including climbing up a rock, I don't even know, mountain or outcropping that was absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the service dog area, please.
Sure. So in 2016, I had the great opportunity to meet the Bishop family that founded Blue Buffalo. And I was bringing a lot of vets out to Nantucket with another organization called Holidays for Heroes. A lot of them had service dogs. And I have noticed that a lot of the vets that I was helping with their claims and helping with transition, a lot of them had these service dogs, these guide dogs, these dogs that could go anywhere because they were trained to perform a task to help them with their disabilities, and they were also clear to be in public. And I was seeing like how much difference that made, just not just what the dog did, but the mere fact that that dog was there and was dedicated to the vet, and that the vet knew that they had to take care of that dog. I could just see the spirit of the vets change. So Mr. Bishop, owning Blue Buffalo, wanted to figure out if we could do more to help with service dogs. And so I started researching what the service dog community and the veteran community, what it needed. And what I found was that everybody in the service dog community was passionate, but 98% of them weren't vets and didn't have any association with the military, any real understanding of the population they were trying to help. They were also, everything was a guide dog. So $50,000, $60,000 for each dog. And so when I ran the numbers, if there's 150,000 vets that need a guide dog level public access service dog, as things stand right now, only 1 in 100 are getting their needs met. And so what we decided was we needed a national organization that could help contract not only these public access service dog academies, but dog trainers to find out for guys that don't need a dog to go everywhere with them, but could really use, I mean, again, this is just like CBD, this is just like cannabis. This is 30,000-year-old technology that we're just refining again. Dogs have been a part of human life for 30,000 years, same with cannabis. I wanted to make this more simpler and create more access for all vets, not just post 9/11, but our Vietnam-era vets, our Korean-era vets. Out of the 18.2 million vets that are in this country right now and are declining every year, 12 million of them are 55 and older. 4 million of them are 75 and older. And the majority of suicides comes from our older vets. We've already lost more vets from the Vietnam era to suicide than we did in combat of Vietnam War. And we lost 58,000 in Vietnam War.
All right. That's a pretty remarkable number. So let me ask you this. Let's go back. We're really running out of time, unfortunately. I'd like to continue this conversation, but I need you to kind of just help me with 2 or 3 questions that I still am very anxious to hear you talk about. Let's start with your point of view on the VA and their position on cannabis and what that means to you and other veterans that are in a similar situation, please.
So the VA has to abide by the federal laws, and the FDA has the cannabis Schedule 1 drug, so it's completely illegal. It has under the federal law, it says it has no medical benefits. So the VA can't. I can tell you this. I've gotten my care from the VA for the past 15 years straight, even having cancer last year, lymphoma, everything was done at the VA. I've had great care. Most of the doctors and the nurses I work with are family friends now. They all know, but they can't say. And so I'm not going to say that any of them are saying it because they can't direct us. They can't even give us the literature on it. They're just not allowed. They could lose their job over it. So they have to remain neutral, but you can just feel the energy of them saying that, yeah, if you do it. And I've been open with the VA. I've told them about my cannabis use ever since I started reusing it again in 2016. And nothing bad's happened to me. I'm 100% disabled. The VA hasn't come after my benefits or anything like that. But I think it's important that we as vets exercise the route that we have and start telling our VA doctors that we are using this instead of hiding it out of fear of retribution. I can only tell vets, tell your VA providers that you're using it. The more information we can get out there and we can use, the faster we can change this and get some of this natural medicine into these veterans' hands, because it's worked for me and it's worked for thousands of others that I've worked with in helping them figure out their own dosages. And it's just like any other medicine, right? There's no one size fits all. We all have our own chemical signatures, and we have to figure out what's best for our body. Some people can't deal with gluten. Others can. Some people can't deal with dairy. Others can. So, to feel like cannabis is bad for everybody is just wrong. Like,
all right, let me hold you there. I don't think anybody feels cannabis is bad for everybody. So I want to make that point. I think the only person that feels that way, or the only organization at this point, is a Schedule I federal, kind of drug violation that many of us are trying to address. So let me go on just for a second, if I may. And this needs, unfortunately, to be our last question. And I'd love to have you back on the show, and we can get into this in more depth. Perhaps we can get some of your other folks that have lived through this and can talk a little bit about it. So I want you to say two things, right? One is I want you to remind the audience how many milligrams you need per day to make all of this work of CBD that you're taking. You can add THC if you want to share with the audience. That's up to you. And what does that cost you every week, right? So if you could just do that, give me just the answer to that question, please.
Absolutely. So I take 150 to 200 milligrams a day of CBD tincture, and I take the full spectrum. So there is trace amounts of THC in it, but you get the full entourage effect. So with that, I get a 30 milliliter bottle. It's got, I think it's a 3,000 milligram bottle. And so that's about $199 if it's not on sale. I've been mostly getting it about $140 a bottle. I can find it on sale. And I get mine through Hemp Lucid and Charlotte's Web right now. But it costs me roughly around probably $300 a month to maintain this, but it's the best medicine I've taken so far.
Right. So the only point that I want to make is, as long as the VA, which is, of course, run by the federal government, has a Schedule I issue, then none of this medicine is paid for by the VA. It's all paid for out of pocket, right? So, okay, so here's the last question I've got for you, if you don't mind. So here's a free mic. Tell the audience anything you want, kind of make any case that you think is most appropriate, and if you can do it in 30 seconds, that'd be fabulous.
The thing I need most people to understand about vets is that we're not broken. We're dented. We're not broken. We need help. We don't need people to do things for us. You can go to SierraDelta.com.org. Sierra Delta is the NATO alphabet for S&D, service dogs. We're helping to get all veterans dogs trained at some level. Dynamic Warriors is coming. We are a brand dedicated to taking what's worked for me and countless others and making it not only available to the rest of the vets at reasonable cost, and even if we can wipe away costs with a 501c3, we will, but also making it available to the general public, because if it works for combat-level trauma and pain, it's going to work for them.
Right. So, I think that's a fabulous message to leave on. And I want to remind the audience that we had Heather Jackson, and everybody knows Heather Jackson now because I mention her all the time. She, of course, was the managing director of The Rock, The Realm of Caring, and she had a similar point of view on epilepsy and autism. Yep. They are servicing 53,000 families, and about a third of them are PTSD patients, where they are providing free cannabis for all those individuals. All right, so listen, this has been absolutely amazing. I apologize that on occasion I had to interrupt, because I just as soon let the mic run and just let you tell your story, because your story is absolutely spectacular. So I want to thank you for coming on, BJ. I also want the audience to know that you and I are going to have many follow-up conversations. I'm very intrigued with what you're doing on the 501c3 side. The audience knows I have a foundation, and my foundation has already made a commitment to BJ and what he's doing, and more about that on future shows. All right, BJ, thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Jeff.
You're absolutely amazing, my friend. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
When we come back, the last segment of the show, responding to your messages, is up next.
The Alchemist Kitchen celebrates the power of plants. They're the leading destination in New York City for CBD. Their organic CBD hemp flower is grown in upstate New York. So come on down and talk to one of their herbalists to learn about how CBD may relieve stress, anxiety, and pain. Located at 21 East 1st Street, right near the Bowery. Mention NYCBD for special savings for your first purchase. See you soon. Or visit them online at thealchemistkitchen.com. That's the ALCHEMIST kitchen.com.
Welcome back to NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill right here on 710 WOR Radio every Sunday at 8 a.m. Also available on iHeartRadio and iTunes and Spotify as a podcast about an hour after the show. We're also available on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at NYCBD Official. Don't forget I write a blog. I've already told you about that, so I'm not going to burden you with that again.
Well, tell people where to get it first. Let them know.
Yeah, to get the blog?
Yeah, where?
We just
remind them.
We just reminded them.
We'll remind them again.
Remind them again. All right. So you can get the blog at medium.com/@JeffreyHill2. That's medium.com/@JeffreyHill2.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Flips. Doing the best I can here. All right. Now on to the fourth segment of the show, responding to your messages. These are the best messages handpicked by the Flipsinator and myself. Our first message comes from Gene in New Jersey. Gene says, I loved Brenda Smith, your guest last week. That was the first time I heard you actually recommend companies to consider for investment. Both of those you mentioned, Segra International and Alchemist Kitchen, are not available publicly. Is that true? If not, how do I evaluate and perhaps invest? Well, Gene, you are right. They are both pre-public companies raising money. Send me a DM and I will send you the deal terms myself. Best of luck in your investments. Our next message comes from Robert from Queens, New York. Robert says, why does it take an average of 497 days from the time the Assembly announces cannabis is legal for adult use to the time that typically states sell their first adult use product? That's a damn good question. Well, Robert, welcome to the political and the legal confusion that surrounds this space. Once the Assembly says yes, it's a go. The state must finalize terms and the New York law. It then goes to each municipality to determine two things. One, if they're going to allow adult use in that municipality. If yes, then each municipality defines the zone where the permits will be given out, followed by an application process, a review process, an awarding of the licenses process. That's a long process. Once awarded, execution of a grow, dispensary, or distribution license gets issued. Net, the average is almost 500 days. Let's hope it gets a little bit lower as time goes on. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show and our guest, BJ Ganem. We'll be back next week for another 60 minutes of the critical issues facing cannabis and CBD. The financial implications, the political implications, the societal implications. We're getting into music and sports, and now you've heard a lot about the military. This space just continues to grow. Remember, knowledge is built brick by brick. Today you got my 25th brick. Until next week, this is NYCBD with Jeffrey Hill.